Okay, Loki episode 2, we gotta talk about it. Now, I know I'm super late on this. Please pardon the tardiness. I just got back from vacation. It was a long week vacation. I was out in Mexico with my girlfriend for her birthday. So shout out to my girlfriend, Emma. We had an amazing time. It was fun. But now it is back to work and it is back to the grind. Now, on this episode, we start off in Wisconsin, 1985. And let me just say, I've been to Wisconsin before, and Wisconsin is popping. It doesn't sound like it's popping, but it is popping. The people there are cool. They know how to have a good time. They know how to drink and all that stuff. I mean, obviously, you can see 1985, they're doing a bunch of, they're doing their own Comic-Con situation out there. I mean, it really wasn't Comic-Con, but, they have, those events where you dress up, and you dress up like medieval time. So, Wisconsin knows how to do it. They know how to party, so, yeah. But anyway, we start off there, and we start off with the variant Loki, which we come to know as a female Loki in this episode. And basically, this female Loki has its own scheme. We come across the time variant authorities that's still hunting down this Nexus being, which is our female Loki, hunting her down. And we get to see this female Loki in action a little bit. We get to see a little bit of her powers. Our Loki, basically, his thing is, he makes projections of himself. This female Loki, her specialty is conscious jumping. Literally jumping from one conscious to the other. And we see her come across Agent C20, who's basically the leader of that operation. Now, Agent C20 immediately gets possessed or gets her conscious taken over, and she takes out the rest of her crew. Our female Loki grabs what she needs to, and she pretty much kidnaps Agent C20, which is pretty unfortunate. She just drags her body out there. And it's pretty funny because early in the scene, we see a little bit of humor as the time variant authorities pop in, and the lady that's working there at that event is just like, hey, you guys are wearing the wrong clothes. You're not supposed to be wearing that. What is that? You're wearing some futuristic type of stuff. Now, mind you, she's not freaked out by their clothing because, around 1985, is all about looking to the future. We had a lot of things coming out, Back to the Future and all that stuff. The 80s was all about looking to the future, but at that point in time, they were looking to the past. So it looked all right. Cosplay, they're like, yo, you're at the wrong cosplay. I don't know what kind of event you're coming here for, but this ain't it, chief. But anyway, moving on. After we come across our female Loki, we come across to Loki in training. Loki is literally training to be a TVA agent, although he's not full blown. We come across him fighting Miss Minutes, and he's asking, what are you, recording, or are you real life, or what are you, and she's like, well, I guess I'm a little bit of both. You can see she's a hologram projection, and you're just like, what? It kind of makes you question yourself too, okay, what is Mrs. Minutes? Because if she's a recording or a hologram, she shouldn't be able to respond to everything that he's saying, but she's legit responding to everything that he says. And when he's trying to hit her and knock her around, she's dodging. She's like, hey, watch it. She jumps back into the TV and she's kind of pissed off. But Mrs. Minutes is pretty much the one training him, and it's real cool to see. Loki is pretty much showing that he has a little bit of knowledge or a lot of knowledge as he's studying the TVA for his own purposes, but they have their own agenda as well. Just we're going to use Loki to find this other variant. So variant for variant. Basically, it's he's a spy or undercover or a snitch in a way. But he pretty much showcases his knowledge. They ask him a question about the timeline and what happens to the red line when it goes past the branch. And his answer was, when a branch goes past the red line, TVA can no longer reset the Nexus event. So we know that is a fact. Once the branch goes past that red line, it is the end. We don't know exactly what happens. They keep saying that it's the end of that timeline. Look, it'll be destroyed or something like that, but we aren't clear completely yet about that. So moving on, we have Mobius, who pretty much really trusts Loki. Well, he doesn't trust Loki. He just sees that he's hoping that maybe this variant of Loki, there's something different about him. He can possibly change to be better, while all the other variants are just, they're still in chaos and evil. He wants to hunt them down, but he believes in this Loki for some reason. And I believe that as we're watching this show, it'll play out. And it's pretty funny because we get to a case of, Mobius debriefing the rest of everyone else, and he's talking about Loki's powers, and he says illusion projection. And Loki really gets pissed off. He's like, no, it's duplication casting. And he's like, yo, what do you mean? What's the difference? And Loki goes into details. Well, illusion projection is pretty much this. Duplication casting is pretty much copying the molecular structure of meat in real time and reproducing it outside. So he shows that he has the knowledge of his own powers, and he's correcting everyone else. And you just don't disrespect Loki's powers. He's just going to tell you like it is. Hey, don't disrespect my powers, man. Now, we go into a little bit deeper about it. Mobius is pretty much hinting that, hey, you never know what could happen once we catch this variant. Loki is looking out for his best interest, which is like, hey, look, just promise me that after we catch this variant, you're not going to disintegrate me. You're not going to prune me. You're not going to do what you need to do or do what Agent BH-15 wants you to do. And Mobius is like, hey, look, you do what you do. You help us out. And there's a possible chance that you will get an audience with the timekeepers. And that is what Loki wants. Now, Loki's a schemer. He's thinking about, if I can get an audience with the timekeepers, I can possibly manipulate them, or I can take advantage of them, or I can kill them, or I can overthrow them and take over the TVA, because he sees the TVA to be so powerful. When it comes to Infinity Stones, especially with the TVA, is in a place where you can't use Infinity Stones. Now, we know due to comic books and some explaining that the Infinity Stones of that multiverse, of that universe, cannot work in any other universe. It pretty much works only in its sole universe. So if you bring the Infinity Stones from the Ultimate Universe to 616 universe, it's not going to work, and vice versa. They only work in their respective universes. So that's why the Infinity Stones are useless in the TVA. We get to a point where he goes into a room with Ravonna, aka R Slayer, aka Renslayer, and they go in there talking and all that, and it's pretty cool. He's like, yo, this room is getting bigger and bigger. Like, where are you getting all these trophies from? Because, I didn't give you this, I didn't give you that. He's signing some stuff, signing some papers, and he notices a Franklin D. Roosevelt high school pen, which is located in Brooklyn, New York. Fun fact. And Franklin D. Roosevelt, of course, was our 33rd president. Correct me if I'm incorrect on that. But as you know, that there are other TVA agents, and it is possible that there are other Mobiuses out there, different variations of Mobius, just like there are different variations of Loki, just like there are different variations of possibly Tony Stark, possibly Captain America. There are different variations of all these different beings in different universes. This is why we have a Spider-Verse, and we have multiple Peter Parkers and Ben Parkers and Mary Jane Watsons and all that type of stuff. We also get to a place where we come across Loki just trying to figure out the TVA. He wants to know everything about it. He's doing his research. He's going from place to place. He's reading all these papers. He's reading all these books. He comes across this lady, and he's just like, hey, can I please see the beginning of time? No, that's classified. Well, can I see the end of time? No, that's classified too. Can I get this information? No, that's classified. So it's like, yo, what can I read? Like, what is not classified? Please show me the way, And it's from there, he does a little bit more research, and he stumbles across Ragnarok. And we keep on seeing that Loki, every time he sees the destruction of his people, or he saw his mother die or something like that, he always sheds a tear, just like one tear or something like that. So we're seeing that Loki isn't bad at heart. He mentioned this later on in the episode, that no one's truly bad and no one's truly good. There's always going to be an in-between, and there might be a back and forth. That's why we have anti-heroes. That's why we have Venom. That's why we have all these other, that's why we have Punisher, anti-hero. That's why we have Wolverine. Wolverine has bodied so many people in his movies. He is killed, but he is also looked at as a hero. But he sees Ragnarok. He's like, man, everyone's dead. All my people are dead. in the future. There's not really anything he can do about it because it's written in stone. From there, looking at Ragnarok, Loki comes across this theory. What if this variant Loki is hiding in different apocalypses? Because if the world is about to end anyway, anything that you do right before that time shouldn't affect the timeline because everyone will die anyway. So with this theory, he brings it to Mobius like, hey, Mobius, check this theory out, man. I think this is possible. If we go to a different timeline and we do just like little different things, we tell them about themselves, we tell them about the future, or we do this and that, it shouldn't affect the timeline. Everything should remain the same. So he really tries to convince Mobius into testing out this theory, in which they do, which is hilarious because they go to Pompeii, Italy, which is 79 AD. And if you haven't saw that movie Pompeii, I recommend watch it. It is so sad because you get you follow these characters and you're just like, oh man, I really hope that this happens, and I really hope that this person falls in love with this person. I mean, from knowing the Pompeii story, you know at the end everyone dies, no one survives. So once you get attached to these characters, seeing what happens, you're just like, oh damn, I really was hoping for that this person will survive. But anyway, I'm going on a tangent. They go to Pompeii, Italy, and Loki is like, yo, I'm going to open up this cage, let out all the goats. I'm going to tell everyone I'm from the future. I'm going to tell them that they're all about to die. I'm going to tell them that this volcano is about to erupt and nothing will change. So they go out and they test this theory, and Mobius is like, man, like he's really scared because he's really, really scared. He's like, yo, like if this theory doesn't work, I could possibly get in trouble with the TVA. So they test out the theory, and Loki's going bananas. He's going crazy. And sure enough, Loki's theory was right. So from there, we come across a situation where Mobius figures something out throughout a conversation with Loki after their Pompeii visit. And he's like, wait a minute. There's this other variable because there's Kablooey. There's this one kid that she gave Kablooey to. And the thing about it is, like, if we know Loki would not make a mistake like that. That had to be on purpose. That was for a reason, and we'll get to that in a second. But from there, we noticed that Kablooey, that candy, was sold in between 2047 and 2051 at a very specific timeline on Earth. So with that being said, they go into their Sherlock Holmes situation and they figure out exactly what disaster was happening in between 2047 and 2051. But because from that theory that Loki came up with, if it's possible to hide in these different timelines right before natural disasters, then we can pinpoint exactly where this variant Loki is hiding. Because if that Loki had Kablooey from 2047 to 2051, and there are natural disasters in between that timeline, there's a very strong chance that we're going to find that variant Loki. And with that said, they did. They found a very specific disaster in Alabama, which is a hurricane in 2050. We pick up at Roxcart, and that is a little nod to Roxxon. That is a future company. If you pay attention to Spider-Man 2099 or Enter the Spider-Verse, anything like that, or even the Spider-Man games, we noticed that there's Roxxon. Roxxon is always noticed out there because I believe that Roxxon came from taking over Oscorp, or partially Oscorp, and a different company that Peter Parker was working for. Correct me if I'm wrong on that as well. But we pull up to Roxcart 2050, and we notice that Loki is allowed to use some of his magic, because what happens once they get to Roxcart and they enter this mall, we see Loki use his abilities to dry himself. And Agent BH15 is like, yo, what the hell was that? And he was like, yo, I'm drying myself with magic so I don't make squeaky footprints like you guys, because we just were walking in the rain. You know, so Loki is just like, hey, look, I'm a natural deceiver. So why would I allow myself to be heard? You know, which is really smart on Loki's part. We get to a part where BH15 argues with Mobius because it is her operation, but Loki is also under the supervision of Mobius. And Mobius and her come to a disagreement where she wants Loki to come with her, and Mobius wants him to go with him because obviously that's under his supervision. She's like, no, you're going to go with this person. I'm going to go with this person. If you don't like it, you can go back to the TVA. We know that BH15 doesn't play around. She's like, yo, I don't trust this dude, so I'm going to keep an eye on him. And Mobius is just like, all right, man, whatever. Do your thing. We'll split up. You go there. I go there. And from there, we see BH15 and Loki walking, and they come across a person who's just shopping for plants in the middle of a hurricane. And BH15 is like, yo, is that you? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. If it was me, I'd wear a suit, but it could be me. And sure enough, they try to go up and they try to pull up to this civilian. And we see that civilian grab BH15's arm. And we're like, yo, what the hell just happened? And what happened was that Loki variant transferred her conscience into BH15. And we see Loki for the first time come face to face with Loki. And he's just like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Now, that whole situation between Loki and Loki, you know, was very interesting because they're trying to figure each other out. Just like they're trying to figure out, well, our Loki is like, hey, are we on the same page? Because before, I was trying to help you out. I was trying to stall for time because my plan is to take over the TVA. Then we get to know that the variant Loki doesn't want to take over the TVA. That variant Loki wants to blow up the TVA. And we come across that as, you know, the variant Loki is jumping from conscious to conscious, body to body. And we come across the body of Randy. And from now on, that's what we're going to call our variant Loki, Randy, because apparently this variant Loki does not like to be called Loki. And we'll find out later in future episodes why. And we see a fight between Loki and Randy. And Loki's just like, yo, wait a minute. I would not treat myself like this, because Randy pretty much transferred her conscience into another guy who's huge and was throwing Loki from place to place. We get to see Loki in action. We get to see Loki use some of his powers. He was able to draw an item from the shelf to his hand using magic. So we see that he has a little bit more than just magic to change his appearance or whatever. So he can deceive people if he wants to. He's just choosing not to. After the scuffle, we get to see Randy, after Randy set up all of her bombs and the reset or whatever that Randy was doing. And Randy finally got a reveal. And it was cool. My question is, and I'm really curious, is why does Randy have blonde hair? You know, because Loki has black hair and, you know, Randy has blonde hair. And I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is. You know, why that choice? But I guess we'll figure out later on in episodes. Now, we get to see the horns. As you know, our Loki's horns are huge. And this variant Loki, or Randy, sorry, has small horns. And from there, we see Randy literally detonate all the bombs and uses the gateway door to send it into the multiverse and blow up the timeline. And we see a bunch of branches going haywire, left and right, left and right. And we see the Time Variant Authority go into chaos. From there, we see Renslayer grab her baton, and she's just like, all right, I guess it's time for me to go into action because this is bananas. This is going crazy. And from once we see that detonation go off, Randy jumps into that port, into the time door, and we see Mobius running out. We see Mobius running out to see what's going on and to see what's going on with BH15 because BH15 wasn't responding and was knocked out. And we see Loki. Loki has a choice. Does he wait for Mobius or does he go into the time door before it closes and follow Randy? And we see Loki come into hesitation. He's looking at Mobius. He's looking at the door. and he decides to go into that door because he really wants to figure this other Loki out. And if he didn't do that, then he probably would not get another chance for a very long time, and he was not going to waste that opportunity. So, did he make the correct choice? I believe so, because he can always go back to the TVA if he wants to, but he probably won't be able to catch up with that other variant again. So we see Loki run through that time door, and we see the end of the episode, and I'm just like, oh snap. I cannot wait for episode 3. I cannot wait for episode 3. Which will be up in a second because we're doing a double upload. So after you watch this episode or listen to this episode, be sure to check out episode 3 because we are uploading that right away, baby. I will see you guys in a few, hopefully in a minute. I'll catch y'all guys in a sec. Peace. 互角の術